Welcome, brothers and sisters, to another episode of Real Talk Mormonism. This is episode number 8. And it's August 8th, 2024. And you can interact with me, D-Bays, the host of the Mormon News Roundup, and that's talent on loan from Kolob. We can discuss me, D-Bays, and the related whatsoever, whatever's on your mind. Whether you're interested in church history, theology, current events, this show is your platform. We welcome both critics and defenders of the faith to join the conversation. This is your time to shine on screen. Now, whether you don't know the first thing about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or you are serving on the Strengthening Church Members Committee, nothing is off limits. There are no dumb questions. Ask me anything, Stump the Chump, no holds barred, outsmart the know-it-all, no scripts, no rules. That is, of course, except for YouTube's terms of service. Simply click on the StreamYard link to participate in the live show. Share your thoughts, questions, and insights on anything LDS related. Engage in lively discussions and explore diverse perspectives on Mormonism with a one-of-a-kind interactive call-in show. So once it's in the description, Tim. Maybe I should have it roll across the bottom of the screen here for everybody, I suppose. I can create a banner for that, I suppose. Here we go. Go ahead and roll that banner. Yeah. There's the link. Now, I was going to do a little bit of show preparation for the Mormon News Roundup. This is kind of a sneak peek to how I work on the show here, and which articles it is that I'm looking at. I haven't really decided which articles it is that I'm going to be doing yet, but these are some of the ideas that are percolating. So I thought I'd review for the show and see how things are going. Tim, my man, what's up there, Tim? What do you want to talk about?
Deadpool.
That's not Mormon related, my friend. This is a Mormon call-in show.
I'm just joking.
Deadpool is not Mormon related, to my knowledge.
Everybody should see it, but anyway.
Well, where there's a Mormon related talk show, you got something Mormon related. Let's talk about it. Otherwise, Deadpool is not for the show.
Let's talk about the meeting on Tuesday night.
Yeah, the meeting with the town council there.
Yes.
Yeah, that is in the show. We can cover a couple of. I have a couple of links available here. We can kind of just look at them and review them here as part of the show preparation here. So LDS members are lobbying to build a new Mormon temple in North Las Vegas. This is just as preparation. This is before the actual meeting. Let's watch this. So I have a couple of things queued up on that for the show. Can you hear that?
Well, yep. We're looking ahead till tomorrow when the Fairview Town Council could decide to allow the construction of a new Mormon temple. And we've learned the meeting will likely be packed again. So many members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints showed up back in June. They ran out of room in the building. The council decided to postpone its decision, but tonight we've learned church members plan to return with even more people. If the temple is approved, it would be the tallest building in Fairview.
Now, that's a lot of people there, Tim. That's a ton of people getting ready for that
tonight
temple.
We could see a...
What do you think?
Well, I wonder what's going to happen here in Bakersfield when they do that too.
Yeah, is that about you? Is that where you live?
I live in Bakersfield, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of controversy there too with the height there. That's not appreciated either.
Nope.
Mayor of Fed.
Nope. It'll be the second tallest building in town.
But the difference is that Bakersfield has more money than Fairview does.
Right? Maybe.
Well, I guess Fairview is kind of an expensive town to live in. I've come to understand it's pretty well off.
Yeah, I think that community is very well off.
Yeah. Nemo is also talking about this. Texas mayor, you wanted to talk particularly about this Texas mayor. Texas mayor has strong words for Mormon church leaders. Let's see what Nemo has to say. This is just for show preparation for myself for the Sunday show.
Fairview, Texas, Henry Lesnar had some strong words last night for the leaders and lawyers of the Mormon Church.
Your attorneys from Salt Lake City are very smooth, calmly starting our conversation with the fact that they've dealt with municipalities many, many times, if y'all remember that conversation, and essentially have forced these communities to take an unwanted large building. What a thing to be proud of. Their message to us is fighting this gigantic building proposed for Fairview is really a waste of our time, and you heard that tonight. I think the word for this attitude is extreme arrogance, and it's what we in Fairview will remember about the LDS representatives. I would also add, shame on the local leaders for stabbing our town in the back. They knew exactly the impact this building would have on our town. and obviously don't give a flip. It's really disappointing. There's no secret what the town of Fairview would have done with it or how we would have reacted. And if somebody didn't tell the folks from Salt Lake City, shame on y'all.
The mayor of Fairview, Texas, Henry.
He's got some pretty strong words there for the Mormon Church, doesn't he, Tim?
Very strong words. I really appreciated that.
Yeah, he definitely said shame on the church and shame on the leaders. He's not happy.
It's a shame that Las Vegas got bought out by the church and that they agreed to it.
Yeah, that's the difference, is that I guess they didn't put any money into these Fairview town councilmen's pockets like they did in North Las Vegas.
Or if they did, they didn't accept it.
Right.
There's no doubt that the church is trying to bribe anybody they can to get what they want. I mean, the city manager here in town is Mormon, and he
In
was
Bakersfield?
in Bakersfield. He was put in 2020. So they greased the skids. They've been greasing the skids for something since 2020.
Yeah, they look at these things well in advance. The scouting parties will be out years in advance looking for these plots. You know, apparently they want to make it so that there's, for every 60,000 members of the church, they want to have a temple within a couple of hours. So they've been looking at these for quite a bit of time. And yeah, it's amazing what happens when you don't grease the wheels, then it doesn't happen. And it looks like it didn't happen. I don't think it would have worked. That Fairview Town Council is pretty fired up. They're not happy.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Yeah, and then here's the actual vote here from the town itself. Here, they went ahead and voted, and they rejected it.
This morning, a small North Texas town taking some action in a debate that has had some residents divided for months now.
Now, while you were sleeping, Fairview's council denied a permit request for a new temple in the area. This is all playing out minutes away from McKinney. Our Janelle Fort is live this morning there where the city council or the town council meeting went on for hours.
Yeah, largely because of the sheer amount of people on both sides of this who signed up to speak during public comment. Unsurprisingly, this meeting was packed. The issue at hand is that the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints, you may know it better as the Mormon Church, wants to build a 65-foot tall temple with a spire that reaches 173 feet high, and they want to build it in a residential area here in Fairview. For perspective, the building would sit roughly 16 stories high. The town's rules only allow for 35 feet high building in its residential districts, which is why the church applied for this special permit. Most of the opposition has been because of the aesthetics. Most residents say they don't mind the church. They just don't want it towering over the town. Here's some of what was said in last night's meeting.
Even as I try to understand why you may oppose the temple, I do not expect you to fully understand why I support my temple.
My objection is against the current plans of the LDS temple, not against the members, the faith.
Now, in the end, Fairview leaders denied the permit request, and in a unanimous vote, the LDS Church says they are disappointed, but added that this is a part of an ongoing process to get building approval, which will, quote, be continued as part of the church's religious freedom efforts. Back to you.
All right, thank you, Janelle.
All right, what's your reaction to all that there, Tim?
I liked how they handled that. I'm happy for the people in Texas that they're denied it, and I wonder. My question is what's going to happen with this lawsuit now? They're going to sue them, and let's say it goes all the way to the Supreme Court. With the court, it now is constituted, is mostly conservative. So I wonder how they're going to rule on that.
That's a good question. You know, the court is definitely lined up conservatively. We got a number of folks who are religious on the court, and that could affect things. I know Sotomayor, I believe she's practicing Catholic. Alito is Catholic. The other Barrett is Catholic. There's quite a few religious folks on the Supreme Court there, and it's very conservative. I mean, it's a 6-3. So I do wonder. I personally don't see it going all the way to the Supreme Court. I mean, I don't think this is going to get very far. I think that this is going to be ruled in the church's favor, And I mean, I don't see this town appealing this all the way to the Supreme Court and having a years-long battle that costs millions of dollars. I don't really know.
That's a good point. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. A couple more things with the show prep here. I'm just reviewing some of my notes here in case nobody else calls in here. And this is David Knight here. This is Jared Bell says, if those options don't include buying McKinney, then are we really exploring all of our options? So this is what we saw from last night from the Church of Jesus Christ, the temples. Last night, the Fairview Town Council denied the church's application for a conditional use permit to build the McKinney, Texas temple at the proposed height and dimensions, a church spokesperson said. At this point, we are keeping our options open. In other words, it looks like this is going to be going towards, litigation.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's definitely heading towards that. A couple of other things that I pulled up that I'm getting ready for this show here. How the LDS Church sees any temple shorter than their proposed height. And what is this, a temple for ants? I mean, they want something very, very big there. It's got to be huge.
Has to be the biggest building in town.
Right. It's got to dominate. And
today, not tomorrow.
So I do have some reaction here after the North Texas town rejected the proposal to build the temple too here. Let's see what the reaction is.
For joining us this midday, you've made it halfway through the week. I'm Cleo Green, and it is back to the drawing board for one Collin County town denying the LDS Church a permit to build a new temple. Hundreds of people here packed last night's meeting in Fairview between Allen and McKinney. Our Janelle Ford has some reaction to that vote.
The massive turnout at last night's meeting is really indicative of just how strongly people on both sides of this feel about the construction of this church. This has been a months-long back and forth. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, you may know it better as the Mormon Church, wants to build a 65-foot tall temple with a 173 feet high spire in one of Fairview's residential neighborhoods. The building would stand roughly 16 stories high. Where the controversy comes in is the town's rules only allow buildings in its residential districts to stand a maximum of 35 feet tall. So the church applied for a special permit that at least one other church in the area has used and was denied at last night's council meeting after hours of public comment from both sides.
This is the modern day David versus Goliath using their billions of dollars to bully, and as we heard tonight, threaten us and our community and citizens.
Having a temple closer to us would be a tremendous blessing for me and many of the youth in our church community.
The LDS Church says it is disappointed with last night's outcome, but isn't giving up yet. They told us that last night's vote is a part of an ongoing process to get building approval, and it will be, quote, continued as part of the church's religious freedom efforts. Back to you.
Yeah. So, hey, Doug, welcome to the program. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. So when we're scrolling back over this here, when we see it's in the green, they were told to wear green, right? As kind of a show of solidarity. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. The Fairview United people. Yeah.
Yeah. What's your reaction to that last clip there, Doug?
Well, I think that the church started out this whole process in bad faith. The very first meeting they had with the town, they threatened to sue them right from the very beginning, which really took the city, off guard, and they haven't backed down from that position. So they excoriated the town council during this most recent meeting. The church attorneys got up smugly and just, took the town council out to the woodshed and the mayor, and didn't listen to a thing the mayor said. The mayor offered them several alternatives, and they already had made up their mind they weren't going to listen. I mean, for them to hand the mayor, tell the mayor they're going to sue him, a day after the meeting tells you that that's what they had planned all along. So,
yeah, they were definitely ready to go on this. If you look over there, yeah, they're ready. I'm sure they already had everything all drawn up. I mean, the church has got hundreds of billions of dollars, and they ain't afraid to spend it at all. No doubt about it.
Not at all.
If you look over there at Rebecca Biblioteca, if you look at this post here, she said, This was really, really interesting here to me. Someone tried to post a very logical suggestion on the Friends of McKinney Temple Facebook page, but it was removed. And here is the actual suggestion. Gee, it's not centered very well for some reason. I don't know why the centering is a little bit off there, but here's a thought. After listening to the first two Fairview meetings and attending the meeting of the temple in person, with the exception of a few, the overwhelming majority of the statements from members of the church is that they want a temple in Fairview, and very few said anything with regards to the size of the temple. Not one citizen of Fairview or council member has said they don't want a temple in Fairview. And that's a good point. Not one of them said, we don't want you here, right? Not one of them has ever said that.
Correct.
Okay. So they just want a temple that is consistent with the height of other religious buildings in the town. Members have flooded Fairview with letters and emails, petitions in support of the temple to no avail. So that was all of the grassroots campaign, was to send in all of these emails, and it didn't do anything, did it?
No, it actually further alienated the people of Fairview, who basically thought they were just being mobbed by the Mormons,
Especially from people outside of the town. This town is a very close-knit place. And that's what they said in the meetings, is that they come here, they move here, they stay here, and they die here. So they know who's in their town, and they don't appreciate anyone from outside trying to influence what's happening on the inside of the town. Am I saying that right? Yeah. I think so. Okay, so let's keep reading. What the members should do, and this is a good idea here, honestly. What the members should do is email their bishops, stake presidents, and area presidents, and other leaders in the church, asking them to build a temple that is consistent with what Fairview will support. Don't email or ask the town, ask the church. You can have a temple in Fairview. We don't need a lawsuit. So this is the whole point here. We're aiming the emails towards the wrong place. We should be emailing First Presidency, the presiding bishop, your stake president, and your bishop, and saying, look, we need to have a compromise. There's no reason. We want a temple in the town. We want it to follow the law. We're sending the emails to the wrong place. What do you think about that suggestion?
I think it was a good one, but I think, again, the church had absolutely no intention of giving this whole process a chance. What I think is happening here, this is just me, I think that the city of Fairview had approved, with conditions, a 158-foot bell tower for a church. And that was never built. The city, like I said, it was approved, but with conditions. One of the conditions being that they adjust the height. The other condition being that they work on what kind of sound system would be in that tower so that it wasn't too disturbing. That bell tower was never built, and therefore that town council vote never became law. The church brings this up time and time again as something that, you did this before, you approved it, and I think what they're trying to do, I think they picked the town of Fairview for this specific reason, that bell tower. And what I think they're going to try to do is get this ramrodded through all the way to the Supreme Court. And if they can get a Supreme Court decision that basically says, sorry, little town, you have to build whatever the church says, then that will give the church carte blanche to build anything they want, anywhere they want in the United States. And I think that's what this whole thing is about. I think it has nothing to do with, being a good neighbor or anything like that. I think they wanted a fight. I think they came to pick a fight, and they have a goal to get this to the Supreme Court and get a ruling that will give them a carte blanche. That's me. You're muted.
It's kind of like what they did with the church back with the proclamation of the family. They decided in Hawaii that they wanted to have standing and they wanted to pick a fight. So they wrote the proclamation, and the rumor on the street is that the lawyers wrote the proclamation of the family and that it came out of the BYU law school and it wasn't a revelation at all. But then they submitted it in general conference, in the women's session of general conference, to make it doctrine. That way they could file amicus briefs. It seems like the legal aspects of this really motivate the church. And you could be right. Maybe they do want to get a Supreme Court ruling on this. And in my opinion, look, if there were some towns out there that had incredibly regressive building codes, let's say that there was a town out there that was very discriminatory and said, we're not going to allow any religious buildings in our town for any reason. Well, obviously, you should be able to take those to court. But it seems like the zoning, permitting, and the other requirements in this town seem very reasonable to me. In fact, when you listen to the town council members, they're saying, you know what, we're willing to work with you. You know, you don't have to make it perfect, but you do need to make an effort. You do need to get it close. So it's not the case here of we're seeing religious discrimination. And that's what that post said. No one of the city councils, of the mayors, of anyone else has said, we don't want a temple in our town. Because if they did, they would have a problem, because you just can't do that. You know, right. Our country was really founded. I mean, it wasn't necessarily founded on the First Amendment, but that was part of the Bill of Rights that came a short time thereafter. And that's one of the things that has made our country great, is the ability to worship how, when, and what you will. So any thoughts on all that, Tim? What do you think?
I agree with what you said. I look at the situation here, see, Tim, where they're going.
You're breaking up on me, Tim. Tim, I'm going to have to remove you and have you come back. You're lagging out. You're lagging out too much on me, Tim. I'm sorry about that, but it was breaking up on you too, Doug, right?
Oh yeah, bad.
Yeah, sorry about that. Okay, you can come back on, Tim. We'll try to get you back on. Now, Culture over there at the Culture Hall, he said, you know, last night, this is what the church put out. They said they denied the council application, and there's an article here that says the church is keeping their options open. Hundreds packed Texas Town Council meeting with the proposed 173-foot spire. Imagine a 16-story house being built next to you in your house. It will forever alter our rural character, a Fairview resident said. I haven't watched this clip. I'm just kind of prepping for the Sunday show here. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, I mean, when the church comes in, that really alters the character of where you are. Imagine your home and then a 16-story building going up directly next to you that is lit up all night long, or a significant period of time. It's going to have a massive effect on that neighborhood. Okay, let me see if I can get this.
North Texas town taking some action in a debate that has had some residents divided for months now.
Now, while you were sleeping, Fairview's council denied a permit request for a new temple in the area. This is all playing out minutes away from McKinney. Our Janelle Fort is live this morning there where the city council or the town council meeting went on for hours.
I think we already saw this, actually.
Yeah, we saw this one. Yeah.
All right, so that's the double checking that, but Culture's perspective on that is still pretty good there. He said hopefully one of those options is to abide by the 12th article of faith by designing the temple to be close to the dimensions currently allowed for residential zoning in Fairview. But the more likely option is that the church is keeping open the option of suing the town, and that's what we definitely heard here. And here is one of the council members. I was reviewing this too. One of the council members talked to, we already heard from the mayor. Let's hear from this fourth city council member here about his thoughts about the church coming to his town.
A lawyer? No. Do I have all the expertise that you have? I don't. Are we trying to keep the Latter-day Saints out of Fairview? No. Your church is here. You have a church. Again, I wasn't on the council. I don't know what transpired during the building of that church, but as far as I know, everything went fairly smooth in terms of God telling you what to do and how tall you wanted that spire to be and how tall the building should be and all that. And I guess it was met the guidelines of what Fairview had, and what more could we do? This is a little bit different story. I mean, I know you call it a temple. What do you call it a temple? church, a synagogue, whatever. It's a name for a building that people worship in. I think, and again, this is me, that if y'all had come with an application of something that met our guidelines, we wouldn't be sitting here talking now. And again, you talk about the law. I don't know if ordinances are laws or not, but those are the guidelines that we go by to make sure people or churches or businesses adhere to the building codes and what they should do. And one thing I look at is if y'all just come in and design a building and say, you got to let us build it no matter what. What about 20 years from now when your congregation or campuses or Sherman and all the things you might need a 20,000 square foot bigger building? Well, why don't you go ahead and build that? I mean, that's why you're saying you're building this big building. It's 45,000 square feet, and that's a pretty big building. Town Hall, you know where Town Hall is? Have you ever seen Town Hall? Does anybody know how big Town Hall is? I'm not happy of all the things you said about Fairview and how you think we think about your church. I don't know if you're a part of the church or not. If I had a house where your present church is, a house, it's a residential zone area, and you came in and wanted to build a 45,000 square foot church next to my house, I wouldn't be happy. I had to adhere to a certain height to build my house and all that, and you come in and want to build a 68 foot or 62 foot building plus a steeple. We don't want this to be a war. We're not trying to say we don't want you here. All we want is something built that adheres to our guidelines or is fairly close to the guidelines. I'm not saying the council has never adjusted things here and there with conditional permits and stuff like that, but we're not even close in terms of what the ordinance says and what y'all want to do. Sorry it's gotten to this point, but we've got to stand up for our rights, just like the church is trying to stand up for their rights. So I'm all for religion and all for churches, and I hope we can come to a conclusion that is both good for Fairview and good for the Church of Latter-day Saints. Another thing I don't like is why it's called the McKinney Temple. I don't get it. I'm sure there's a logical reason. I don't understand it. Oh,
They told us we could change the name. Yeah.
that's good. But anyway, thank y'all for participating, and hopefully we can go forward and work together and maybe come to a logical solution for both of them.
All right, what do you take away from that, Doug? What is the takeaway here from this council member who was, I believe, council member number 4?
First of all, I watched this whole thing live, so I saw what he said before, but I think he represents pretty much all the people on that council. Nobody hates the church. You know, they made accommodations for the church to build the Ward Chapel or Stake Center. I'm not sure which one it is, next to the temple lot currently. And I think they would have been happy to entertain a temple if it had been more in line with their guidelines. But the reality is that they didn't. The church didn't come in and work with the city to design the temple. They came in with the temple completely designed. They put out a bunch of flyers to the neighbors that said, hey, there's going to be a temple next door. It meets all the zoning requirements. It's only going to be 2 stories tall. And we're going to make a special open house night for you to come and see this beautiful building. Well, the church had already designed this thing, and it's not 2 stories tall. A story is not, 30 feet tall, even though it may have 2 floors. A story is usually considered something like 18 feet or something like that. So it was way taller than anything in the codes allowed. It didn't conform to the codes, and they didn't say anything about the 74 foot tall temple. Spire on the temple. So they came in kind of disingenuously, and then they had the planning board meet, and right off the bat, the church lawyer stands up and says, well, you're going to be staring down the barrel of a lawsuit if you don't approve this.
Yep.
And that is just completely alienating. So I have to think that was purposeful. That, they came in trying to tick people off, to me, because you read it, contrast that with there's a Deseret News article about the Tucson temple, the Tucson, Arizona temple. And it talks about how they met with the planning zoning board, and they adjusted the design of the temple to meet building codes and all this. So there's all this super nice cooperative spirit there with that temple, and then contrast that with this temple, which was basically, coming with guns blazing, and it just doesn't make any sense. And I think really, like I said, I think that the church wants a fight. I think they want to get this to the Supreme Court and get a carte blanche ruling. That's what I think they want. You're muted.
Maybe they're selecting Fairview because they're think that that is the best place for the appeals court to then go to the Supreme Court. The church is very strategic about where they want to file these things. So I wouldn't be surprised if they selected this on purpose.
They're sneaky. Their lawyers are slick, like the mayor said in his speech. You're real smooth. Their lawyers, we know they coached members to say certain things when they got up to speak, to talk about how the spire inspires them to look heavenward and all this stuff. All these are 100% legalistically calculated things that they're having people do. The language they used when they said that they're fighting for their religious freedom. Well, there's no danger that they're going to lose their religious freedom. They want the religious freedom to just run over everybody. That's the religious freedom they want. But nobody's telling them they can't build a temple. Nobody's telling them they can't worship. Nobody's persecuting them. Although they had one guy stand up and say that this was religious persecution. And I think personally, I think he was a plant. I don't think that was a sincere person. Nobody else got up and said that, Everybody, all the other members that got up just said, hey, we love our, if they lived in Fairview, they said, we love this community and this would really mean a lot to us to have this temple. And then people from outside of it, basically said the same thing, people in other little towns around there. But the whole methodology the church has used to go about this process just smacks to me of an ulterior motive. So that's what I think.
And that's what the mayor said, that it struck him as incredibly arrogant. If we take a look at the actual Fairview Town Hall, the Fairview, this is a big building right here. This is all these pictures of the Fairview, actually the town hall here. It's pretty big town hall there. Very, very big. And just imagine, they said, imagine something that's twice as big. That's one of the tallest ones in the town. When you Google Fairview Town Hall now, the Mormon Church Battle, look at this. The Mormon Church Battle just comes up as one of the hits here. This is just a regular Google search on image. You get a few town halls here. And look, I mean, this town is going to be known for taking on the David and Goliath here. Fairview Town Council voted 7-0 tonight to deny without prejudice the LDS Church's application for a conditional use permit to build the McKinney, Texas temple. And there was that 5-hour live stream here where all of these people came forward. And a lot of them were members of the church who, were claiming persecution. I really wanted to go back and find, the top 10 worst takes out of that conversations, because there was a lot of bad takes in there. There was a lot of really bad arguments that were being put forward by people as to why a temple needed to be built there. And for me, it seemed like it was very reasonable what the town council kept saying. They said they approached it very reasonable. They said, we don't want a war. We don't want a lawsuit. We don't want a battle. We just want you to, respect our authority as a town council to decide where people move. And the rationale that was laid out as to why they have the town divided into east versus west, why there's a residential section, why there's a commercial section. All of these things seem very, very reasonable to me. This isn't, it's possible that you could try to build a religious structure in some place and have a bunch of bigots and have a bunch of anti-Mormons and have a bunch of people who said, we don't want your warmed over Masonic rituals in our town, and we don't like Mormons, and therefore get out of here. And that would be really against the character of the country that we currently live in. And I don't think that would be appropriate based on the fact that we have a First Amendment of the Constitution. So, I mean, it's really interesting here.
Yeah, one of the things that the mayor and others mentioned was how impressed they were with the sincerity of the membership. They were especially impressed with our youth, which our youth, we have awesome youth, actually, we really do. So, they're very complimentary of the church. And again, they emphasize that all this was about was zoning, had nothing to do with religion. The church is going to try to make it otherwise. Also, I wanted to mention to you that when you're showing that Fairview Town Council building, there's a graphic. It's really actually pretty slick. There's a graphic on, that one, where it shows the building and then the temple overlaid. And you get an idea of just how unbelievably massive that temple is compared to anything else around it.
Wow.
I mean, the town council building is the largest building in the town. And that's what the church is proposing to build.
That is extraordinarily large.
Yeah.
Just dwarfs that. That town council hall, the Fairview, Texas Town Hall, fits right inside of the temple, no problem.
It's twice the volume and then 109 feet taller.
Yeah, and then also a smart Redditor checked out exactly how full the Dallas Temple is. The nearest temple to Fairview is going to be about 27 miles away. We're not talking about oceans of difference here. That's 27 miles. This is hard. Think about our pioneer ancestors went 1,300 miles. You know what I mean? But a smart Redditor checked out how full then is the Dallas Temple, because we also keep hearing that, well, it's full. We try to go up there. It's not available. A smart Redditor checked out exactly how full the temple is, at least according to the scheduling feature. You can make appointments to do various things inside of temples, though you can, in most temples, also show up without an appointment. But at least in, developed countries, people are more likely to make appointments. Okay, so I'm guessing that youth baptism sessions are a little bit fuller because youth groups attend in mass. But other than that, it's incredibly empty. So if you look at, various different appointment schedules, we have one that's at 2:00 in the afternoon. If you just select a random time to do the rituals inside of the temple, total attendees, this is yesterday at 2:00 p.m. There was one attendee. If you select another session of it, a couple other sessions of it, one attendee for the 2:00. Another session at 4:00. I can't quite see that. Maybe this isn't the greatest graphic in the world. The total attendees, when you look in here for yourself, look at all these seats available. Here's the seats here: 29 seats, 37 seats, 25 seats, 8 seats, 22 seats, 41 seats. Most of these are completely open. There's only one of them at 7:00 p.m. that's even full.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's the prime slot. And from what I understand, those rooms hold 38 people.
Oh, is that right? Okay, so 38 people. Yeah. So we're seeing, and that's assuming that everybody even shows up. Well, actually, there's one session here that says 41, so it's got to seat at least 41.
Well, maybe it's a little more than somebody.
Yeah, maybe around 40.
Said 38. Yeah.
Yeah, around 40. Around 40 people. They're going to fit around 40 people, and so they are definitely, absolutely not full in any way, shape, or form. Which always begs the question: why is it that we're trying to jam these things down when it's only a short drive away? And of course, that's a very, very good question that I certainly don't have the answer to. If you look at some of the comments here that people put in the comment section here, let me pull that up too. This is all part of the show prep here. What? It's not logical. It's not reasonable. This is madness. It's exhausting. The members of the church here are set on being martyrs, and they've convinced themselves that they are the ones being bullied, rather than a multi-billion-dollar corporation coming into a very small town in the United States to threaten them with a lawsuit that would bankrupt them. It's insane. So we're seeing everyone here thinks that they're the David in the David versus Goliath scenario. But for me, it's the corporation that's worth $300 billion that is the Goliath here, and not the very small town. I don't know if these town council members are paid. A lot of times they're not, but sometimes they're just part-time. And even what we heard in the video is that he doesn't even know necessarily all the regulations, all the rules. He just knows what they've done in the past. These are typically, good people. These are your neighbors, and they're not trying to bring down an evil corporation. They just want people to follow the rules of their town.
Yeah, I know that they're part-time. Also, you talked about the billion-dollar corporation. I thought it was kind of hysterical when the mayor in his speech called it the LDS Corporation. I thought that was a little subtle dig he got in, in his speech. But yeah, they're not acting like a church. They're acting like a big bully corporation. That's what they're acting like.
Yeah, definitely are. And of course, they are headed to court here. Rebecca posted this as well, since we're kind of on this topic. This was posted actually just not that long ago here, that it looks like we're headed to court. It says, Fairview Mayor says the church dispute is headed to court. So now, as I tell people, they talk about praying for me. They need to pray for our attorneys because it's in their hands right now, says Mayor Henry Lesner, who gave a very stirring address, about an 8-minute address, which I thought really summarized the entire situation here. But let's see. The lawsuits are coming out. That's no doubt about that. Sorry about the ads. I've got to sign up for the premium here to get rid of those ads.
Yeah, it always throws me when I see that.
You call it Church
Let me back that up.
Row, a block of East Stacy Road with an existing LDS building and an open lot where the church wants to expand.
One thing I think everybody understands.
This is where that expansion hit a serious snag. A 4-hour community meeting, locals saying it would violate zoning rules, simply too big and too tall for that neighborhood. And the town council in unanimous agreement. A win for the group Fairview United.
Our goal is to truly love our neighbor as ourselves, and we feel like we've done that by making this about ordinances and not about religion.
But then, what's next?
So as of this morning,
this is what the mayor told us today.
And they said they would sue us. So this is what we expected. So now, as I tell people, they all talk about praying for me. They need to pray for our attorneys because it's in their hands right now.
The mayor says he's received notice that the lawsuit will arrive soon, something an LDS spokesperson in San Francisco said he could not yet confirm.
It is not the intention of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to go to court to fight matters, but we also understand the importance of standing up for religious freedoms.
However, an official LDS written statement to WFAA did include this. Due to the outcome of the vote, the church will explore other avenues to ensure the temple proposal receives the due process it is entitled to under the law.
We are willing to comply and make concessions as much as we can to move this forward in a way that would be beautiful for everyone.
But not a beautiful situation, the mayor would suggest today.
And here we are. So court is next.
With a prayerful and legal decision to come somewhere down the road in Fairview.
All right, what's your reaction to that one, Tim? Or yeah, Tim, let's see if your connection's any better here. Tim, can you hear me? What's your reaction to that? Yeah, go ahead and talk. Let's see if your reaction
to the church's limit.
Yeah, I'm so sorry, Tim. Unfortunately, you're just really breaking up. You need a better connection to be able to do it. Doug, can you react to that video?
Yeah, I think that it's disingenuous. The church lawyer that got on there, they have no intention. That if they had any intention of working this out, they would have come to that meeting with alternate proposals. And if those weren't acceptable, rather than excoriating the town council and threatening to sue them, the lawyers would have said, we're here to work things out with you. Let's sit down and see what we can come up with. And here's a couple of ideas that we had. And, they had 2 months to bring alternate proposals to the table. And the only thing that they agreed to do was to rename it the Fairview Temple and to take 15 feet off the spire, which is basically the lightning rod. So.
Yep, definitely. A couple more preps on this one here. This is the Fairview City Council member explains why the LDS Church is mistreating both the town of Fairview as well as seeking to abuse the law. And what we see here is a difference in Fairview, at least what I see is the LDS Church wants to make this about a religion. They want to sit and say that this is our freedom to be able to build buildings in the way that we want. And if you're stopping us, then you're stopping us from worshiping. And that's against the First Amendment of the Constitution and against our LUPA and a bunch of other things. And the town council is saying this is absolutely not about religion. This has nothing to do with faith. It has nothing to do with your religious freedoms. It has everything to do with following the code. So the knives are definitely out on this one. And this is a little bit of a long comment here. But let's go ahead and watch this one, too, as kind of a preparation for Sunday. Fairview City Council member explains why the LDS Church is, really not doing the right thing here, according to at least Fairview City Council. Let's listen to this.
Some remarks I'm going to read. And this is to educate folks on both sides of this issue. have a little different opinion than some of the things you've heard. So first of all, I want to address the hundreds of Fairview residents who have studied and researched data related to the LDS history of temple building. First, I'm so proud of the hundreds of Fairview residents who have studied and researched data related to the LDS history of temple building. You've kept your focus on the issue at hand. This is a zoning issue, not an issue related to anything to do with the LDS Corporation. Thank you for your signs of strong support as the council works through this issue.
Oh, do you have something on that, Doug?
Oh no, he said LDS Corporation.
Yeah, LDS Corporation. Yeah,
that's his. He got that little dig in right there.
You don't think that was a slip of the? You think that was deliberate? You don't think it was a slip of the tongue?
Oh yeah. Oh no, that's deliberate. That's deliberate. Yeah.
No, if it had been deliberate, he would have said Mormon Corporation. That really does it.
Oh, that would have, people's head would have exploded.
He doesn't know his Mormon trolling quite as well as certain other individuals, I guess, right?
I also want to thank those in our surrounding cities, as well as groups and individuals around the country and around the world, and current and former LDS members who have stated their support for the town of Fairview's position on this matter. The issue of revising our zoning ordinance for this proposed building is the biggest crisis that has ever impacted our town. I personally have heard from Fairview folks in every corner of our town, encouraging me and the council to resist this intrusion into the residential area of our town. I'll give you a copy of this if you need it, so you don't need a copy. Now, I want to address the thousands, potentially, I don't know how many people are outside, but I know there were thousands last time, of LDS folks who are here, somewhere in the vicinity of this meeting or listening online. First, welcome to Fairview. This is a great place. Keep hydrated tonight. It's very hot out there, so we're worried about you. We went to extraordinary measures tonight to try to ensure the safety of people and get as many people in this room and get as many, everybody, by the way, Richard will get a chance who's here to talk. A little bit about our town that you may or may not know, because many of the folks supporting the LDS position are not from Fairview. Matter of fact, the vast majority are not. The east side of our town was all residential with large lots on large homes on large lots. You hear about zoning RE1. What does that mean? That means residential estate, 1 acre. We have RE1, RE1.5, RE2, and then areas over further east are even less dense than that, 4 acre lots, 6 acre lots. The maximum home height in this area allowed is 35 feet, and we hold people to that. We have families with longhorns, alpacas, horse farms, and donkeys all over town. There is no sewer system or storm drainage system in that part of town. I'm talking about the east side of town, on the east side of Greenville out here. There are no businesses. There's no multifamily dwellings. And you've heard us talk about our dark skies. We take pride in that. As a matter of fact, just last weekend, the star party was held in our town. You can actually see the stars in our town. It's important to us. Zoning is tightly enforced, and all building is looked at closely to make sure that it will not have a negative effect on the neighbors. The objective is to maintain the country feel on that side of town that our residents moved to Fairview for. Now, that's the east side of town, the residential side where this temple was proposed to be built. On the west side, the side of town that you're sitting in right now, this is our commercial area where we have single and multifamily dwellings, shopping, restaurants, hotels. We actually have some corporate offices recently. There is nothing new about the way our town is zoned. It was done this way intentionally, and it's been this way for decades, maybe 70 years. So this is not something that we just came up with yesterday. This is the way the town was laid out, and it's why people move here, to keep the country feel on that side of town. So if you were here at the meeting, I have a request. I would ask you to walk about 50 yards about that way, go north, and of the building we're in, to the steps of Fairview Town Hall. And I've had some of your folks up there, which is in our commercial area. Look up at that town hall. It is 65 feet tall, coincidentally, same as what the temple is proposed to be, and contains 22,000 square feet of office space. The building that your leaders from Salt Lake City are proposing is 65 feet tall and about 45,000 square feet, surrounded by gleaming white marble and topped by a 109-foot spire. The proposed temple building itself is literally twice as large as our town hall. And then you stick the 109-foot spire on top. That takes it up to 174 feet, which is taller than our water towers. This proposed gigantic building is to be located in the residential side of town, east side, where the maximum allowable height again is 35 feet.
Yeah, let me just ask one thing, Doug. Why is there such a penchant here to build these in the residential side of this town? Why not just build it on the side of the town that is zoned commercial, where there's not as many height restrictions and there's not as many issues with the lighting, and that there's better infrastructure? Why is the church set on setting temples in residential areas instead of in the commercial zones?
I think a couple of reasons. Number one, I think building it in a more affluent residential area protects the temple better from urban decay. A lot of times business districts go downhill pretty quickly. In 15, 20 years, you can have a strip mall that's, turned into pawn shops and things like that. So I think that might be part of it. But I think the other part of it is that they can make that temple stick out like a sore thumb. And that's what they want. Somebody also mentioned that lot that they want to build the temple on is the highest elevation in the whole town. So that piece of ground is higher in elevation than anything else. So that'll make the temple even more visible. And I think that's what they go for. They want the visibility. They want, here's this neighborhood with little bitty houses, and then you have this giant gleaming temple, lit up with searchlights, and that's what they want.
Yeah, and as Deb Landporn here says, welcome to the program, by the way, Deb, thanks for stopping by. She says they want them to be on a hill with low buildings around them so that they will stand out and can be seen for miles and miles. They want to absolutely dominate whatever area it is that they go into, if possible. Now, obviously, when the church is building a temple in Shanghai or in Manhattan or in Philadelphia, you're not going to be able to do that because there are already many, many large structures there. But when possible, the church rarely builds these structures in any downtown situations whatsoever. They usually build them in the wealthy suburbs outside of town. Rarely do these temples have any mass transportation where people of a low economic status, socioeconomic status, could get there on mass transportation. Accessibility is not at all important for the church. Instead, it wants to, have people drive by and say, what in the holy hell is that thing? I don't know what it is, but I want to ask questions about it. And that is far more likely to happen in a residential area than it is likely to happen in a commercial area. And as Howie here is saying, great points, Doug, commercially zoned land is also generally more expensive. That, to my mind, is only a minor factor. The expense
That's
there,
minor.
I hear what you say, Howie, but look, the church has more money than God, and they don't worry about the cost that's associated with these things.
And many times the land is donated by wealthy members. So it becomes a moot issue for the church. But yeah, I think they have a strategy, and a lot of it is based on perception. They want people to see this church. Number one, it's going to be in a wealthy area. So, that makes it seem like a higher end building, and surrounded by nice homes. And all those homes are much, much, much shorter than the temple.
Absolutely. Let's continue on with this. This is a very good speech here from the Fairview Town Council member speech here.
Yeah, that's the mayor speaking.
Over there.
Yeah, this is the mayor, right?
Yeah, that's the mayor.
Yeah, okay, yeah, gotcha. Okay.
The east side, where the maximum allowable height again is 35 feet. Every home over there conforms with this. You can actually get up on a drone and find homes that have flat roofs because of this limitation. We enforce it. At this location, this proposed building would be so out of scale, so out of place, that it would look like some alien civilization has dropped it onto that property. And I'm sorry if you don't like that, but that's what it looks like. This is the crux of our zoning problem. It is hard to imagine how an architect or site planner or a simple casual observer could not see how out of place that building would be giving the RE1 zoning. Now, again, for the LDS folks listening, this is kind of offside of what you heard a little bit ago.
Yeah, I'll just say one thing here. He says that the building would be very alien, but in some ways, the church really wants these temples to be the alien. They want them to seem outer worldly, brilliantly white, incredibly expensive, up to $100 million. The finest materials, the most beautiful landscaping, the amount of money that is spent. The church has spent or committed to spend about $15 billion total in all of its temples. They want them to be alien. They want them to be truly celestial. Don't you think, Doug?
Yeah, I think they do. And I think his point, though, here maybe goes a little deeper, and the people in the meeting, and especially the church attorneys sitting there like little vultures on the side, they know that he's talking about the fact that they did not come in and work with the city in the design of this temple before they submitted their plan. They dropped it like a bomb on this city, and with, basically hoping to run over them. And it's not working.
It hasn't worked so far, but we'll see. The keys are still in the car, and the foot is still on the accelerator. It's up against a brick wall right now, but we will definitely have to see what happens here. Howie Rourke says, in my experience, for chapels at least, land cost certainly comes into play, and that is the difference here. Is we have the church has approximately 15,000 units throughout the entire world. About half of those are in the United States, and those chapel costs, those can add up over time. With so many different units. An average chapel in North America probably runs around $2 million, according to the Widow's Mite. But the temples are special, and I don't think that the church really factors in the costs associated with the temples at all. Now, if you do have wealthy donors who donate the land to the temples, like the Smithfield, Utah temple was donated, and I believe that like the Draper, Utah temple was donated, the church will certainly capitalize on those things, but I don't think that that is a major consideration, at least for temples. It might be for chapels, but not as much for temples.
Your representative's position with our residents from the very start has been, if you don't like this, if you don't approve this building as is, we will sue you. If y'all remember the second information center, many of you people that are in this room were there. Your local LDS leaders, I'm talking to the LDS folks in the room, have taken the position, if our residents don't like the proposed gigantic building, then move. An LDS family would be more than happy to pay a premium for your property to live so close to a temple. People who move to Fairview, they raise their families here, and they tend to stay. So we have very long-term residents in this community. There's, we have new developments coming in, but when people get here, they tend to stay. This is why we are pushing so hard, and why they are pushing so hard against this proposed building. Your attorneys from Salt Lake City are very smooth, calmly starting our conversation with the fact that they've dealt with municipalities many, many times, if y'all remember that conversation, and essentially have forced these communities to take an unwanted large building. What a thing to be proud of.
Now, that is one of the best lines in this entire diatribe, is what a thing to be proud of, is that you have forced your way into so many small towns and pushed them over like dominoes. What a thing to be proud of. What do you think, Doug?
Oh, that was a perfect line right there. That mayor, he went for the jugular with that one.
Yeah, he's doing a very fine job of defending his town here. And not one thing has he said bad about the Mormon people. See, this is the difference here. No one on this town council has really talked about Mormon people at all. All of this is directed towards church headquarters, towards the lawyers, towards church leadership. Now, he's directed some of the local leadership, but he has not said one word to the average garden variety Latter-day Saint here. He's not really talking to them. The only thing that he said is take this message back to the headquarters, because this isn't about the people in Fairview, about the Latter-day Saints in the area. This is all about the corporate church. And he alluded to that at the beginning, the corporation, the LDS corporation. So, yeah, I mean, that's the way he's approaching things. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, he, like I said, he landed a good blow there. The worst thing about this whole thing has been the church lawyers. The church lawyers absolutely failed the church, as far as I can tell. Not that they have lost any arguments or anything, but the PR, this is a PR disaster for the church. Their lawyers came across so smug and just complete jerks and completely insensitive. And there's no way they can recover from that. That guy that got on him, that one clip, the guy that from California that was talking about trying to make it seem like the church is just so willing to cooperate and everything. It's like the people that compare what he just said to what these people, the lawyers said in this town council, are laughing their socks off, because these lawyers were jerks. And there was a little army of them sitting on the front row. I felt they looked like little vultures just waiting there to swoop down on people. But anyway, I was completely annoyed with the behavior of the church. The church failed. There's nothing Christian about anything they've done so far with this town. And the speech that their lawyer gave was about as anti-Christian as you can believe. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's a big PR mess that's associated with this thing, and it's almost impossible to imagine how this could be salvaged in any way. I mean, the people on this town council are going to be really forever against members of the church. Can you imagine a missionary knocking on the door of this mayor or town council in a few months' time frame from now? That would be an absolute joke. And the biggest thing here is this is really an abdication of leadership of the Quorum of the 15. They didn't even send a member of the 70 here. Where is an apostle to bear witness of the power that comes from a temple? Instead, what we have is the lawyers. And once again, we find out that who is the church spokespersons? Who is the ones that really matter? Who's the ones that really bring the mustard? And it's the church lawyers. The apostles are nowhere to be found. Why are they not ministering among the people? Why are they not embracing people and answering questions and bearing testimony of the name of Jesus to all the world? Why aren't they here to show the power of the priesthood as one of the only top 15 people on earth who supposedly wield apostolic power to show these town council members how sinful they are of voting against the Lord's house? Where are they? Once again, they're nowhere to be found. They're sitting in their cushy office buildings in the church administration building or the church office building instead of doing anything. I think that's a pretty fair criticism.
Yeah, and the people in Fairview have asked more than once. They said, where are the decision makers? You've brought this proposal to us. We have some ideas. We want to talk to you about those. But you bring people basically in the meeting, they said, well, that's above my pay grade. That's above my pay grade. Well, they want to know, well, where's the person who's not above the pay grade? We need to talk to that person. Where are the decision makers? And they don't understand that, none of the people the church has sent out there have any decision-making power. Absolutely nothing.
Exactly. That's what I'm mentioning. Where are the decision makers? They're not here. Instead, what they're doing is they're going around to state conferences and attending quarterly Ensign Peak returnings meetings where you get to hear about how much is in there instead of being out among the people. The apostles are not men of the people. They're absolutely not in anywhere where they could actually affect change or talk to people with any kind of meaningful interactions. They're just not there.
And the church PR people are asleep at the wheel because this is a disaster. This is going to make it to the national news at some stage. And these clips, and nobody showed the clips of the church lawyers giving their speech. They spoke for longer than the mayor does here. But when those clips get out on the national news, the church is going to be hurting.
Yeah, let's keep this going here, and let's hear a little bit more from this mayor.
Their message to us is fighting this gigantic building proposed for Fairview is really a waste of our time, and you heard that tonight. I think the word for this attitude is extreme arrogance, and it's what we in Fairview will remember about the LDS representatives. I would also add, shame on the local leaders for stabbing our town in the back. They knew exactly the impact this building would have on our town, and obviously don't give a flip, which is really disappointing. There's no secret what the town of Fairview would have done with this, or how we would have reacted. And if somebody didn't tell the folks in Salt Lake City, shame on y'all. Fairview has 8 religious buildings in our small town, one of which is the LDS Meeting House. The town and its residents have had no issues with any of them. In fact, the current LDS Meeting House is the tallest building at 68 feet in our residential zone. We have offered a CUP, conditional use permit, for the proposed building that includes a 42-foot maximum building height, which, by the way, is the height of the Chase Oaks Church, with a spire going up to 68 feet, with 42% impervious coverage of the property. The size of the Dallas Temple, which most of us have been to see multiple times, is close to what might work for Fairview in our residential zone.
And yeah, this is the mayor's solution here is why not, instead of having this 173-foot spire with a 68 feet total starting point with 174, why not have something that is just literally like what's in the Dallas Temple? That seems to work well for the people in Dallas. Why can't it just work for the people who are here? What is the disconnect?
Yeah, and the spires on the Dallas Temple actually start on the ground. They're separated from the building. They start on the ground. They're kind of like, it's a little bit different, the design of that. But yeah, I mean, you can have spires that inspire people to look to heaven. But they don't have to be on top of the building. They can be kind of separated from it or whatever, however they did it there. I guess they're kind of on the wings of it or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, that's an interesting design for a temple. It does have large spires, but to keep the height down, they start at the ground level. I'm not really familiar with it. That's a very interesting concept there.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, yeah. Still inspiring.
We have suggested that. We have also suggested that if for some reason this building must be built in Fairview, which we're not sure why, but for the LDS corporate folks in Salt Lake City to save face, this large building, as is, would probably fit into the commercial zone with few issues. That's on this side of town. So I asked the LDS folks listening tonight to join with the numerous LDS groups around the country that are protesting the use of LDS's organization, Great Wealth, to target smaller communities.
Yeah, he's noticing that he's not alone in this fight. He's not thinking, he's not in a silo here. He's noticed that this is taking place in Bakersfield, in Lone Mountain, in Heber Valley, in Cody. He's done his homework. He's learned more about Mormons than he ever bargained for.
Yep.
Yeah, without question.
It's happening all over the country right now, sometimes threatening to bankrupt the town. That has happened. To try to force zoning changes so they can erect gigantic buildings in residential zones. Most of those churches that are these pictures of are in commercial zones, by the way. They're not in residential neighborhoods. If the town of Fairview and its residents are somehow forced to accept this misplaced, gigantic building, thousands of folks from this area passing by that building every day will only see and remember the legacy of LDS arrogance. I suspect that is not the legacy that you want to leave with. So I ask one more time, please, if you're here from the LDS community, please walk about 50 yards up to our town hall, take a look at that building, double the size, and put a 109-foot spire on top. That is what the issue is. The building is way too big, way out of place for that location. We've given options, what could be done. I think they're reasonable options. End of my speech. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think he's taken the pulse of his town there pretty well. And I think he knew that they were going to be voting in opposition. They are lockstep here in what they want. And it's becoming a lot more difficult for the church to push over these temples. It's a little bit different in Cody, Wyoming, where you had the city planner, I believe, was LDS, even though he resigned. Yeah. Or the Heber Valley, where the majority of the people were in the town council were the LDS. Or even in Bakersfield, you're going to have a higher percentage of Mormons. When you get outside of that corridor, when you try to force it into, look, Mormonisms and evangelicals, they have never gotten along. They are one of the most, they just quite frankly do not get along, and they don't like each other very well. And this is really trying to put a temple in a place where it's going to be very challenging to do so. And so far, Fairview 1, LDS Corporation 0.
Oh, that's funny.
We're going to see who gets the last laugh about all this, though. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate. I do have to credit Rebecca Biblioteca and Landon with Mormonish, Landon Brophy with Mormonish. Have just done a stellar job of, covering these events and of kind of piecing together the church's MO on these, the temples in small towns, and how the tactics that they're using, and kind of they were able to warn Fairview, Texas about a lot of the things the church might do. And I know that they're working with Bakersfield as well. I think the next temple in the firing line is going to be the Raleigh, North Carolina temple.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm. So, hopefully that town will be learning something and be suspicious if somebody comes with some completely off the wall zoning change for a certain area or something like that. So, let's see, not Raleigh. Maybe it's not Raleigh. It's, well, it's in North Carolina. Let's see, what is another city in Raleigh?
I'm not sure about this. This is a Hinckley. See, and this is the difference here. This is a Hinckley temple.
Yeah, now look at that thing. That's unobtrusive.
Yeah, I mean, this is let's say a 9,000 square foot building, and it's probably only about 65 feet tall, which, as the mayor said, the Mormon chapel, these are no bigger than a stake center. They're about the same size as a stake center.
Yeah.
In fact, some of the stake centers are bigger than that. This would fit inside of that residential area, would be something along those lines. When Hinckley came in 1995, I think it was, and he started his temple push in 1997, and by 2000 he had taken the church from 50 operating temples to 100, and he did those with these mini temples. Those were good enough for him, and everybody who had ordinances in there, in the church's eyes, those ordinances are still valid. Then what is the issue with having that, going back to the same model where they're far less expensive, they're far less intrusive, and you don't have to light them, and they don't require as much transportation issues, and there's just so many less issues with these things. Why do we have to upset all of these people when, for generations, Latter-day Saints have gotten along well with their neighbors, typically in building the structures, building meeting houses, and now the apple has just... President Nelson has upset the apple cart in so many different avenues, and he really just doesn't care about the perception of the church, and it's going to lead to a lot of backlash. I had Rob from who runs a podcast over there. I forgot his last name. Sorry. He's a psychologist. I had him on a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about temples. And he said, think about what happened with Proposition 8 in 2008 in California. What the church did there is that they burned a huge amount of bridges. They just really torched the community support for Mormonism in California. And he said that it took a few years for the fallout to happen. And then guess what happened? More people are leaving the church in California than in any other place on earth. When you burn down through the political process to try to get your way, to try to take a minority and force its will through litigation and money and underhanded tactics, people remember that, and it takes a while for it to hit the members, but you're going to see these type of areas of the church's influence in these areas fall away, just like we saw in Proposition 8 in California. Any last thoughts on any of this here? Any last thoughts on this one?
I think I think somebody said maybe it was Greensboro, North Carolina. I thought it was North Carolina was the next one up, but I may be wrong.
I'm Googling that. I don't see anything in there on that for sure.
Yeah. So, but anyway, I think maybe it's South Carolina or Virginia or something, but there's one over on the East Coast that somebody today was saying was next. And they'd even posted a picture of a 5-acre lot across from a Baptist church. They said, is this the next one? Because, it's sitting there empty. But anyway, I do think it's very bad PR for the church, the way they're handling this. I think it's going to cause a lot of hurt feelings. I think the missionary efforts will suffer in those areas.
They will.
However, I do think that the church may have sort of what they're considering a long-range goal, that maybe they don't care what happens in the short range, that in 50 years from now, nobody's going to remember all that stuff, but they'll have their temple, by golly. It'll be there. So,
yeah, it will be there. And what I said is, President Nelson's legacy will be just a couple of things in my estimation. Number one, he will be remembered for his war on the word Mormon. It was an incredibly irrational war that he's had, and it will take a generation for that to be reversed. He will also be remembered, number two, in my mind, for the spending so much money on temples. And as we pointed out earlier in this episode here, those temples are incredibly underutilized. The amount of seats that are being used in the Dallas temple is very minimal. On average, only 7 or 8 people in the scheduling, and not everybody even shows up for the scheduling. And number 3 in my mind will be the Mormon shrivel. The fact that the church really has not achieving a replacement rate, especially in North America, as the wards and chapels are hollowed out at the local level. And then finally, this is my personal way that I'll remember President Nelson, is the SEC fine. He was at the helm when the church was fined. I believe that will be his legacy. These temples, Doug, they're going to stand empty in a generation. They'll be even less used than they are now. They'll only be open a couple days a week for just a couple of hours because there won't be enough members to staff these things, because already the Dallas temple has a huge amount of vacancies. It's not even 10% used. You're going to split those members who go to the temple between that and Fairview. Now there'll be even less people to use these temples. So it's going to be a big problem.
And you're splitting the number of temple workers as well.
Absolutely. And I've heard that some of these temples need hundreds or even thousands of members to staff them, especially if they're really large temples. Now,
we have a small temple here in Nashville, and I think that it's right sized for us. It doesn't take so many workers that they can't get workers, and there's enough sessions going to meet the need. If they need another one, they can build another one in another town. The smaller temples were very practical. Yep, that's it. That's our temple. Our temple is about the same size as our stake center, which is right next door. But these are way cheaper to build than those humongous ones, and it's easier to manage the staff. So I think Hinckley was onto something when he came up with the small temple design. But
Hinckley was willing to give up on a temple if it wouldn't go through. The Harrison Temple in New York, which eventually got renamed to another temple, which eventually got renamed to the Manhattan Temple. He just gave up on it because it didn't get approved through. And he said, okay, well, we lost this one. We'll fight a different fight. President Nelson, he doesn't give up. He's going to push these things through, no matter what the human toll is, no matter what the bad PR is. He doesn't really care. Now, before I let everybody go here, we're going to end this live stream. I do have a couple of videos here we're going to show a sneak peek on. I guess, Doug, I'll let you select something. I got a couple of options for you. We're not going to watch the whole video, but these are all my unlisted videos that I haven't put out to the public yet, that are on my to-do list to release. But I have a couple of them here that I'll give you the choice here of just the top. I'll give you the choice of 4. Let me give these 4 here for you to consider here. First, we have President Nelson's legendary flight of death. I give a deep dive. Get it? Deep dive.
Yeah.
That's option number 1, and we'll watch a little clip of that. President Nelson's legendary flight of death. That thumbnail is peak form, though, isn't it?
I love that. Yeah, that's you.
I love that thumbnail. That is perfect. Okay, that's option number 1. Or option number 2, Miracles and Memories Reflecting on My Healing by LDS prophet Spencer W. Kimball. Was I healed by an LDS prophet?
I don't know.
That's option number 2.
Okay.
Option number 3, Brother Jones, I see you in the waiting room. We'll try to get to you here. We're going to let Doug pick one video, watch a couple of minutes of it. I'll catch up with Brother Jones. And then option number 3 here is top 10 worst Mormon books of all time.
Okay.
Okay. And this is your last option here. The top 10 most important LDS books of all time. We'll watch a little snippet. You got 4 choices. Legendary Flight of Death. Was I healed by an LDS prophet? Top 10 worst Mormon books, or top 10 most important Mormon books? Which one do you want to take a sneak peek on?
Well, I definitely want President Nelson's Flight of Death. And yeah.
All right. We're just going to watch the opening. We're just going to watch a couple of minutes of this. I don't want to watch the whole thing because I want to release it as a full episode. This will just be a sneak peek. Russell Marion Nelson Sr. is the 17th president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, having assumed the role in 2018. Before his leadership of the Mormon Church, he was a renowned cardiothoracic surgeon and medical researcher. Born in 1924, Nelson has emphasized the importance of following Jesus Christ, restructuring church programs, and building numerous temples worldwide during his tenure. But before we talk more about Nelson, I'm your host, D-Days, and that's talent on loan from Kolob. I run the Mormon News Roundup, a contemporaneous LDS news show, and the Mormon movie reviews, where we take a look at old Mormon movies, and we premiere this content every Sunday and Monday nights at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Nelson served as the Sunday School General President of the Church from 1971 to 1979. In 1976, President Nelson was invited to offer the invocation at the inauguration of W. Rolfe Kerr, who was to be installed as the president of Dixie State College in southern Utah on Friday, November 12th, 1976. The Special Collections Library at Dixie State University still has digital copies of the inauguration of President Kerr. As you see, Nelson's name appears on the program as giving the invocation. So why should anyone care about Nelson giving a routine prayer at a university commencement?
I am glad that you asked.
One day before the inauguration, on Thursday, November 11th, Nelson boarded a SkyWest flight going from Salt Lake City to St. George, Utah. The flight experienced a minor mechanical problem and the plane landed in Delta, Utah as a precaution. The passengers were flown from Delta to St. George on a different aircraft. Ever since that precautionary landing, President Nelson has publicly shared his experience about this allegedly doomed flight as a miraculous escape from death aided by the Almighty. But important information gleaned from a Civil Aeronautics Board report seems to indicate that the near disaster Nelson referred to as a faith-promoting experience was not as serious as he indicated. We will cover that board report more near the end of this episode. I intend to discuss every mention I could find of Nelson's legendary flight in chronological order, including a short movie that he released memorializing the supposed miraculous flight. There is much more that meets the eye in this story. Let's get started. Okay, real quick here. I'm sure you're familiar, Doug, with President Nelson's legendary flight of death. What do you think about the intro? I'm just going to show you one other part from this episode.
No, that was good. That was good. I like that you're filling in some of the holes, like what does Dixie College even look like, especially back then. So I enjoyed seeing that. Yes.
Okay, that's very nice. Hey, Theodis Whoopi, really appreciate you giving that super chat, $9.99. Thank you for covering this important story. This will be a watershed moment against the church for unchristlike behavior. We appreciate your efforts. Really appreciate the super chat. That's very kind of you. Really appreciate it. We'll give you one more sneak peek here. I'm going to fast forward on this episode just a little bit and show you my favorite part, which is where I redo. You know how he released in 2011, Doug, the church did a narration of the alleged flight of death. Whoa.
Right.
There's all kinds of stuff happening in this. I'm not letting all my cats out of the bag here, but let me just pop this up here real quick, and I'm gonna fast forward through this part right here. But I redo his legendary flight that was put into this in 2011. He did. Man, I gotta get some premium subscription here. This is freaking Bush League. I apologize for this. Okay, so in 11th of November 2011, he gave an inspirational message about the flight of death.
Yes.
Now I redo this in in my opinion, a very comical manner. So I'm just going to play that. That'll be the last clip of this because I don't want to let my cats out of the bag. Once again, Brother Whoopi, really appreciate you. So let's watch this. I think you're going to enjoy this. This is my best work right here. If this doesn't entertain you, then you might as well unsubscribe right now because it's not getting any better than this.
Okay.
We are
for crying out loud.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Man, talk about your ads. Okay, let's go back here. Sorry about that. Let me back that up. Dive. In November of 2011, we get Nelson's most famous retelling of this story. It was released as an inspirational message on the church's official YouTube channel. Nelson told his story once again, and the church made a video depicting the event. The title of the video is "Men's Hearts Shall Fail Them."
I was in a small airplane, and all of a sudden, the engine on the wing caught fire. It exploded, and burning oil was poured all over the right side of the airplane, and we started to dive toward the earth. We were spinning down to our death. Oh, this woman across the aisle, she was absolutely uncontrollably hysterical.
Screw that lady.
And I was calm. I was totally calm, even though I knew I was going down to my death.
What a
I
hero.
was ready to meet my maker.
He's ready to meet his maker.
We didn't crash. We didn't die. The spiral dive extinguished the flame. The pilot got control and started the other engine up. We made an emergency landing out in the field. But I thought through that experience, if you've got a faith, you can handle difficulties.
Or a good pilot.
Knowing that with an eternal perspective that all will be well.
With an eternal perspective, Doug, all will be well. Now, it's hard to make a good MH370 passenger joke, but I managed to put one in there. I'm sure that's not going to win me a lot of favors, but yeah, as long as you have a good perspective, all's going to be well. Too bad for those
Or a
MH3.
good pilot, yeah.
Yeah, or a good pilot. It always helps to have a good pilot. That's even more important.
Qualities. Knowing that with an eternal perspective that all will be well. In Luke 21, the earth shall be in distress, nations with perplexity, the seas and the waves roaring, men's hearts failing them for fear. What we're seeing is a prediction that in these latter days, people will be afraid. Men's hearts are failing, and that includes women, because they forget their identity and their purpose. The heartaches will come. I've lived through the death of a wife and the death of a daughter. I've seen the troubles that divorce brings.
You are bad.
Children or grandchildren go astray.
Hit the like.
Disability. Illness, injuries.
Either way, hit the like.
To the individual who is weak in the heart, fearful in the heart,
be strong.
Be patient with yourself. Perfection comes not in this life, but in the next life.
Or after the second anointing.
Don't demand things that are unreasonable.
You mean like evidence?
But demand of yourself improvement. As you let the Lord help you through that, He will make the difference.
Oh my gosh.
Turn it up, Doug. Hands
I'm
up,
so
Doug.
grateful for the gospel of Jesus.
Yay!
That allows me that kind of strength in these tumultuous times.
Today, not tomorrow, not next.
Oh, D-Base, you and your editing just crack me completely up, man. You guys crack me completely up. Oh, oh. Oh my gosh.
Oh, that was good.
I might be having a heart attack here pretty soon. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's the episode. There's a sneak peek there. Yeah, it's gonna be good.
Let me ask you, because I didn't see my favorite part. Now I'm not sure if it's that video or if there's another one, but in one of the videos about the spiraling plane ride of death, he talks about how he thought about all of these awards and accolades that he had gotten, and how that they really didn't matter because his family was forever. And that just has always hit me wrong. It's just like, dude, that is so self-aggrandizing. It's like, yeah, you're dying and you're thinking about all these prestigious things, awards that you've gotten, and you want to make sure people understand that. That always just completely rubbed me the wrong way. I don't know if that's in there or not, but
it absolutely is in there. He says that a couple of different times in this episode about how, you know what, listen to me, Doug, if I'm ever in a near-death situation, I guess I have been a couple of times. I mean, not incredibly close. The last thing on my mind is that diploma that's sitting on my wall.
I know. or the Surgeon of the Year award sitting on my desk, Seriously. It just it always rubbed me the wrong way, that whole
Yeah,
thing.
actually, I do have that. He talks about that a couple of different times. And I recut his I talk about I go through every single mention of it, and I do it in only about 20 minutes, as opposed to the Mormonism Live, which it took him absolutely forever. He talks about his awards. I'm trying to find out exactly where that was, but did you like the scream that I put in for the woman? That's nice.
Yeah, that was hysterical. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And that's why I said this is definitely not a propaganda video, right, Doug? This is not a propaganda video.
No, not. Mm-mm.
Definitely not. So I added the explosion to it, and then I do like the sound that I put to that woman in there. And he says, "Oh, this was incredibly, really? Did this really happen? Man, that's no friggin' way. Can you believe this? No friggin' way." That's why I really like the scream. Yeah. And I said, "Screw that lady, man. Screw that lady."
That's an Alfred Hitchcock level scream right there,
That's why Rusty is the hero in his own story, and he says he doesn't have to fear death. And the reason I said that is because he knows the handshakes. He's not afraid. And this is the amusing thing. He says, "Well, I didn't die." Well, we figured you're telling us a story that you didn't die. And he says, "Well, we landed in a field." No, sir, you did not land in a field. You landed at a different airport. And he said, "It's all because of God." Well, or a good pilot. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
And he throws the MH370 passengers under the bus. They didn't have enough faith. You know that, Doug?
Yeah.
I do like the folks who didn't pay
pay the
tithing.
tithing.
Yeah, there they are. Yeah, that's right there. And he's the bravest one there. I do talk about that scream. I put the scream in there a couple of different times. But yeah, he does talk about that. He talks about marrying his wife. He talks about these awards. Let's go back to the original. He gave the talk also one time in general conference. We'll watch that real quick just for fun, and then we really will let you go on this one. So he talked about this. He talked about this in general conference one time. By 1992, Nelson had been ordained an apostle. And in this general conference address, he opines more about this flight. LDS General Conference is a semi-annual event held by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, where church leaders address members of the church worldwide. It usually takes place on the first weekends in April and October. The conference includes several sessions over 2 days with speakers from the First Presidency, the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, and other general authorities of the church.
I remember vividly an experience I had as a passenger in a small two-propeller airplane. One of its engines suddenly burst open and caught on fire. The propeller of the flaming engine was starkly stilled. As we plummeted in a steep spiral dive down toward the earth, I expected to die. Some of the passengers screamed in hysterical panic. Miraculously, the precipitous dive extinguished the flames. Then, by starting up the other engine, the pilot was able to stabilize the plane and bring us down safely. Throughout that ordeal, though I knew death was coming, my paramount feeling was that I was not afraid to die. I remember a sense of returning home to meet ancestors for whom I had done temple work. I remember my deep sense of gratitude that my sweetheart and I had been sealed eternally to each other and to our children, born and reared in the covenant. I realized that our marriage in the temple was my most important accomplishment. Honors bestowed upon me by men could not approach the inner peace provided by sealings performed in the house of the Lord. That harrowing experience consumed but a few minutes, yet my entire life flashed before my mind. Having had such rapid recall when facing death, I do not doubt the scriptural promise of perfect remembrance when facing judgment.
Boing.
I document how each time that the it gets better and better each time. Now I got some of this information from a friend of mine who only wants to go by the nickname called the Tear in the Chair, T-A-R-E, like the wheat and tares. He helped me with some of the information. Obviously, Mormonism Live has done a deep dive into this. Get it? Deep dive?
Yep.
Get it?
Yep. Got it. Yep.
But in case you don't have 3 hours and 45 minutes, I do give you the entire summary with some humor in 23 minutes. I'd like to think that I did a pretty good job. So it is quite amusing.
Yeah, it is. And I love your little effects and everything. You're so quirky.
Yeah,
it's really delightful. So
I really appreciate that. For some reason, when I'm on the camera, I give a kind of a deadpan look, and then when you mix that with the bizarre humor, hopefully it works. I don't know if it does, but anyway, hey, I want to give a shout out here just to a couple of folks here. 1 Thessalonians 5:21. Really appreciate the donation. That's very kind of you, sir. I really appreciate that. And Whoopi, once again, brother Whoopi, really appreciate the donation. That's very kind of you. Really appreciate that. Doug, thanks so much for coming on. We're going to bring on one other caller
bet.
unless there's other people. Thanks again, Doug. Have a good one, okay?
All right. Take care.
All right, bye-bye. All right, hey, Brother Jones. Hey, welcome to the Mormon. Welcome to Real Talk Mormonism. What's on your mind here? What LDS thing do you want to talk about?
How you doing? You can hear
Doing
me
fine.
okay? All right.
Yeah, what's on your mind?
Two things. There's been a lot of talk about temple statistics and so forth. I do want to say that I watched the entire Fairview, Texas, the city council meeting, and was quite saddened to see how the authorities of the church are handling this. It's made me want to speak out a little bit. I mean, to me, it is really sad that the church is behaving this way and threatening to sue and all that kind of stuff. So that's really, I don't know. I just don't know how people can think that this is Christ-like behavior.
Well,
so
let me just ask you, John. Let me ask you then, what should be the solution here? Because we seem to have a disconnect between what the community wants and what the church wants, and we're seeing a lot of toes that are getting stepped on. We're certainly not winning friends and influencing people here. So, what should the church do to fix this whole situation?
I have a solution. They've already tested this solution. Some of those people who would live in Orem, Utah, near Costco and Orem, may be aware that there's a piece of land there that has 2 stake centers on one piece of land. They could just make 2 temples. They can make 2 stake centers on one piece of land because there's so much need. They could make 2 temples on one piece of land. Doesn't that make sense?
Well, I mean, in the state of Utah, there's a total of 30 temples that have been announced, and some of them are awfully close together. There's 2 of them in South Jordan. There's 1 of them in West Jordan. There's another one in Draper. They're all within driving distance. Then you have another one that's in Salt Lake City. You have one that's in Linden. You have one that's in Orem.
Yeah, it's getting there. So I'm being a little facetious, but to me, the obvious solution is to just change the building, how it's designed. There's plenty of land, and they can still provide the capacity they need. I mean, anyway, so that to me, it's just a simple solution. To me, from my perspective, there's something else at play with this whole thing, and
well,
anyway.
let me just jump in there, Brother Jones. If the solution seems to be very clear to people, like we pulled up the comments from Rebecca Biblioteca. We've seen comments from the Fairview mayor. We've even some comments from the members. It's kind of like everybody kind of sees the solution here. So why can't the church, I'm talking about the big corporate church, why can't they seem to adjust on these temples? Whenever they're announced, they seem to just be very rock hard on saying, okay, this is where it's going to be. This is how big. And there's no compromise. How come the church can't compromise now like it did back in the President Hinckley area? What has changed? What has changed?
I don't know. Honestly, I'm not sure. To me, it's a mystery. Other than one thought that came to my mind is maybe this is their chance to test this RLUPA, if that's how it's called, RLUPA laws. Maybe this is a chance to push the issue and see how far they can take this for longer term strategy or something like that. Okay, but this isn't why I called. I actually didn't hear most of the show tonight. I'll go back and listen to it, but I wanted to, since we're talking about temples. I live in an area where there's a brand new temple. Okay, it's been open since October of last year, and I thought I would give you some stats. These are relevant. In fact, I'll make this call right now. You've heard of the return and report thing. Return and report
Yeah.
Uh,
The
where they
app.
keep track. I think we should start another one, return a report for like temple attendance. Just people who go in. I'm sure there's people that go in who, would be willing to report how many people were in the session, something like that. So here we go. Yeah, this is my temple district. Okay.
That's a heck of a temple there, Brother Jones. That is.
Hey,
if you're going to build a temple, it should look like that. That is a really nice temple, don't you think?
Well, $100 million will get you something pretty nice. Okay.
Yeah, and they sent out an apostle for this one, right?
Oh yeah, of course.
Was it it was definitely a an apostle. Who was it?
I think it was Razband or Renman.
Yes, it was Razband. I'm remembering now. It was Razband.
Yeah. So I just want to give you some stats. In this country, Thailand, there it is. There are approximately 23,500 members on record.
Okay. Okay.
It's probably changed with maybe a few hundred off from that. The official church reports 2,500 or 23,000, I think, maybe just over that. I know for a fact the number of active members in the country, again, this would include all youth, all primary, adults. The number of active members, a very, very generous counting would be 3,000 active members in the entire country. Okay.
That includes adults and children.
Yes.
And active would be defined as somebody who attends at least once a month?
Well, you tell me. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that. Maybe. Yeah. So there's a very interesting statistic that I got wind of. What do you okay? This temple can do each and there's 2 endowment rooms. They have 28 seats per endowment room, 14 on a side, right? If my count is right, the maximum number of endowments they could do a week with all of the sessions is, I believe, 588. And so around 600 would be maximum capacity.
Okay, let me ask you this real quick before you go on with your numbers. How often is it open and for how long on average?
3 sessions on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and I believe it's 6 sessions or 5 sessions on Friday and Saturday.
Got it. Okay, keep going. Very interesting.
Okay, this is a very interesting statistic. What percentage of the patrons do you think that have gone through this temple in 8 months? What percent do you think come from Thailand? Just give me a guess.
Indigenous Thailand. So first of all, wait a minute.
People who are members who live in Thailand, what percent do you think of all the patrons they've had come from Thailand?
So you said there was 3,000 active members, so there'd be like 1,500 adults. So what percentage of them are actually from Thailand as opposed to temple tourists?
Around 2,000 active adults. I'm guessing there's maybe 1,500.
I would guess 75%. That's just my guess.
Okay, this will shock you. This will really make you think. Okay, 3% of all patrons to the temple so far have come from Thailand.
But how do you know that information? How do you know that?
I should give that to you off the record, maybe.
Okay, you have that as a confirmed source, huh?
Oh yeah. 3%. Okay, they've got people coming from all over the region, which was expected. That was planned. Okay. Now, I also want to mention Thailand is a major tourist destination in the world. Okay. In fact, this year, there's already been 20 million tourists come to Thailand. I don't know if there's talk about tourist temples. Okay. Maybe you've talked about like Italy, or what would be another tourist temple? Maybe London. I don't know. I think Thailand is exactly that. But there's a lot of Eurasians. Okay. By the way, Russians are called Eurasians now in the church term, because Russians can't go to Ukraine. They're coming to Thailand, and that's great for them. They can come to Thailand without a visa. They can get here, and so there's been many Russians come here to go through the temple and all that. but people from other in the region as well. Okay, but I want to add that there's a temple planned in Cambodia. There's a temple planned in Singapore. There's a temple planned in India.
A second one in India? There's already one in India.
No,
right?
there's the one in India is not done yet.
Okay.
I'll bet it's 2 or 3 years away. Okay. This temple took 8 years from the announcement to see, was that right? It was 2015 to 2023. Yeah, it took 8 years from announcement to completion. Yeah,
okay.
So my point is that what is this temple going to do, say, in 5 years when all of these other temples are done and these people from Cambodia and Singapore and India don't need to come here to go to the temple? So, yeah, anyway, that's mainly what I wanted to share, some interesting things. There's, to me, the amount of money being spent on all this is incredible. And if there's one thing, well, how do I say this? ROI is something that's something discussed. Return on investment. Okay. That's absolutely discussed in all of the programs, FSY, whatever it is, they want to know how much they're spending per head. They keep track of this stuff extremely closely and detailed. So it's a very strange phenomenon that's going on, the amount of money being spent. So anyway, I thought that would be interesting insight for some of your viewers, and maybe other things I can share. I'm glad I got to do this. I've never jumped on like this before.
Well, let me ask you there. Okay, if the church tracks the return on investment as closely as you say, then it must have a calculus for the return on investment of the temple. And therefore, it would seem like the church would think that this was a positive income bringer. The rumor on the street is that when you build a temple, that the tithing goes up not only before the temple is complete, but also afterwards, and that the temple pays for itself. Do you think that's true?
I don't know how it's possible here with the number of active members and knowing what incomes are here. I can tell you what the monthly electric bill is for that temple. Okay. And it's incredible. So I just don't know. I don't know. It's very odd. Okay.
Or let me ask you this: does the church just not care about the costs associated with it? Because we know the church is very concerned with finances, that's for sure. But with the church having, the backstop of $300 billion, is it really that important if a temple really pays for itself? Is a temple so important to President Nelson and the First Presidency that they will build them at any cost, whether through litigation or other means, just because they believe in the power of the temple so much, and the money is really a secondary factor?
Maybe there's a couple of, a lot of people talk about the real estate strategy of the church. Two things I'll tell you. This property where this was built was purchased back around 2007. It was purchased many years before it was built, and before it was announced even. So anyway, I can tell you that they're building a temple in Kaohsiung, Taiwan. That property was purchased at least 20 years ago. There's a stake center right next to it. So I've wondered myself if what's at play here is not like 100-year real estate strategy. It's like buy these products, because they cannot operate these things with a positive cash flow. But again, the church's position was that that's not an issue. But I can't imagine them. I mean, if you look at the long term, 20, 50, 100 years, what are those properties going to be worth? I don't know. Anyway, that's just some. I don't know. It's a very odd. Very odd.
Yeah, it definitely is. But speaking long term, if you go back to Kevin Pearson, who was the church's area authority in Utah, and he's one of, in my opinion, the most important area authority in the church. He kind of talks about how behind the scenes what the long-term plan is for temples. And this is a pretty important clip here. And he talks about the purpose of the church is not to feed the poor and the needy. And then he's going to talk, I believe, in this clip about temples as well. And he kind of talks about maybe what the overall long-term plan is of the temple building on this planet. And it's pretty extraordinary if I have the right clip here queued up.
Is it conceivable that we would get to over 1,000 temples in your lifetime? Absolutely. Absolutely certain. Now that'll take a lot of money. Okay. Where will that come from? Yet people wondering what the church is doing with its money. Well, as you can see, it gave away about $1 billion last year just to try to help with hunger and feeding the poor. But the purpose of the church is not to feed the poor and the needy of the world. It will continue to do that at an accelerated rate.
Okay, so real quick, what's your reaction to this video? He says the purpose of the church is not really to help other people. The purpose of the church is supposed to bring people back to God, and therefore building 1,000 temples could be something that we would see. That is an extraordinary amount of temples. What do you think about your reaction to Kevin Pearson, who's not just a run-of-the-mill member? He's an area authority, and I believe the church's most important area authority because he covers BYU.
Well, in our lifetime, okay. He's talking to young people there. Let's run the numbers, and they have the money. They have the money to do that. Okay. Do they have the manpower right now? No way. They don't have the man. I mean, they could build them, but they could also sit and run open one day a week kind of thing. So that's my reaction.
Yeah, they definitely do not have the manpower, not even for the open houses, but to staff these things. I mean, they're begging missionaries, elder couples to go in and spend a lot of time on these. And it's going to be an increasingly tall order as we see more temples that are constructed. And if you look like the accelerated pace of LDS temple construction, we're seeing that a total number of announced temples here that we have total announced is almost 350 announced temples. And we only have about 200 of them that have had the ground broken on them. So if we have 350 announced, we can see that we could be getting to 1,000 temples. If we continue to see this exponential growth here of these temples going up, it's going to be a significant endeavor. And as far as the money is concerned, these 350 temples, if you add them all together, the cost of how much does 350 temples cost? Well, the Widow's Mite report gives the best estimate, in my opinion. The total amount of cost for 350 temples is only it's $15 billion to get to 350. So if you just triple that, we're talking about a $50 billion investment here to get the church to 1,000 temples. Does the church? Yeah, that. When the church's total valuation is $300 billion and growing, and it's going to be $1 trillion organization within another 20 years. If you're $1 trillion organization, $50 billion is really not that much money. So yes, if that's the vision that Kevin Pearson is giving us behind the scenes and letting us in on, I don't think he's just talking, out of a vacuum here. I think he's letting us into some of the behind the scenes stuff. It's definitely possible. It's going to take a lot of money and it's going to piss a lot of people off, like in towns like Fairview, but it is definitely accomplishable.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll all be paying attention, I guess. And somebody to end a retainer 501c3 status. I think that's very much in play. Meaning that's a key objective, and absolutely a key objective, to maintain tax exemption. So
I don't know. I keep hearing, no offense to Howie, no offense to you, Brother Jones. I keep hearing that. I don't see that as a primary, even a secondary motivator. The church itself is going to keep its 501c3 status in the United States without building another temple. If they never built another temple, they'd be able to keep it. This is the difference here. If Ensign Peak was being used to fund temples, then I could see them saying, yes, we need Ensign Peak to maintain its tax exempt status, because there's some question as to whether Ensign Peak really should be tax exempt, considering the fact that it allegedly hasn't done anything for anyone. So if the money came from there, I could believe that. But the church, just like any other church, you don't have, you get some church in some podunk area, some rural area that has one church and doesn't build anything. It keeps its 501(c)(3) status. So I don't see that as a big argument. That's just me.
Well, theoretically, the IRS is investigating this whistleblower, right?
Yeah. So according to David Nielsen's lawyers, he released a statement last year to the Salt Lake Tribune. Not only did David Nielsen whistleblow to the SEC, and he supposedly collected or shared in the collection of the $5 million fine, he would have gotten 30. I believe the whistleblower is 30% of it, assuming that he might have had to split that among other people who helped him whistleblow that we're not aware of. But if he received it all to himself, it'd be about $1.7 million. He has also indicated through his lawyers and others that he has whistleblown to the IRS. And only once per year can a person who whistleblows to the IRS, can you follow up with your paperwork and say, hey, are you still investigating my case? And David Nielsen's lawyers signaled to the Salt Lake Tribune last year that, yes, that case is still open. If you believe it, if you believe David Nielsen's lawyers, then yes, the IRS is still looking at that. That's not a smoking gun, but that's always possible.
Right. Yeah. Lars has indicated that it's still ongoing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
so, yeah.
Anyway. I get what you're saying. I don't know if Lars really has or not, because Lars is not in communication with his brother. So I don't think he can speak on behalf of that. But we do have from the Salt Lake Tribune, his lawyers, David's lawyers, saying that it was open last year. Whether it still is or not, we can't say, because there hasn't been an update, at least not to my knowledge.
That's fair.
Yeah. So let me just ask you before I let you go here, unless nobody else wants to get on, why is it in Thailand that so few members of the church are actually using the temple, and it's mostly temple tourists in that area? Why is it so few? I mean, I've never heard of anything like that. 3%? That's almost unbelievable.
Well, I would say there's a couple of factors. Distance. It's difficult for some. Okay. Some people, they would have to drive between, say, 3 to 8 hours drive. Okay, but that I mean, it's much closer than they used to have to go to Hong Kong. Okay? But I just don't think it's the draw that they thought it would be. I would be very curious to know. I don't know this, but I would be very surprised if more than 50% of adults even have a temple recommend here.
You're talking about the 50% of the active adults.
Yeah.
So in the country, if your numbers are correct, let me just make sure my numbers are correct. You have 3,000 active members, 1,500 of those are adults. Only 750 of them actually have a temple recommend, and then maybe only 70% of those actually use the temple recommend. So we're down to around 500 people. Is that approximately the numbers we're talking about?
Yeah, that's probably a pretty good number. Well, let me just add this. A stake here, there's 4 stakes here. A stake here is about 500 active members. That's a stake. Okay. That would be 2,000. There's 2 districts. That would make another 700 active. Yeah, it's like 2,700 active members in the country. So, what was your question? Why are so few people using it? I just don't think it's that big of a motivator for them to participate. I mean, there's trips. They do trips together, things like that. Like 30 people will come at a time on a weekend, but it's very minimal. The other, as is always the case in Thailand, people don't have the free time, and getting places is difficult. It's very time and cost prohibitive. You can't just like pop over there in 10 minutes. It might take you, even if you live in the city, it could take you an hour to get there, or 45 minutes. So it's just not a quick and easy thing. So, but let's say it were. I just don't think there's the motivation to be in there all the time. And you know, I haven't talked too much with people about the nature of the temple experience and how people react to that. There's another story I'll say for another time. It's a very interesting story, but anyway, I'll see if I can find out. Maybe return a report.
Hey, why not? Let me ask you one other question before you go. You know, why are you going to give us any clue as to how you obtain this information at all? I mean, your face is out there now, so people can certainly be able to tie 2 and 2 together. How do we know that your information that you provided here is accurate?
Because I'm very nervous to say how I know, and yeah, I say I'm very nervous. I still have contacts with people who are directly involved with all of this. Let's put it that way. Is that fair enough? I mean,
yeah, I mean, you know, a lot of these more remote villages in Thailand, it is very difficult. It takes bus rides. There's no direct, you know, flights or anything like that. It's going to take hours and hours on these rickety buses, and the infrastructure in Thailand is not good. You're going to have to come from a long way away. You have to.
It's actually much better, but it is. I mean, somebody who makes $400 a month, you know, selling food or whatever up country. It's a significant expense to come to Bangkok, even though they have. I mean, anyway, I don't think that's a primary problem. I think the bigger problem is time and interest. Okay, the people who want to be in there are the 3%. But I was also going to say this. One of the reasons I was able to call in, and this is the first time I've really put my face out there a little bit, but I would be shocked if anybody in Thailand ever even sees this. Okay, the local people here don't watch Bloggernacle podcasting. They only a few can understand the English. I mean, there are people in English. They're not paying attention to any of this.
Yeah,
I literally, if you were to ask if you were to survey all of the members about what's going on in the church outside of Thailand, 95% of them would have no idea about anything that's going on outside of Thailand. Yeah.
Let me break in there and ask you, what percentage of the people in Thailand who are active know that the church was fined by the SEC $5 million for the Ensign Peak debacle?
I can tell you straight up, I'll bet you there's less than 10 people who even know in the whole in the membership here. Less than 10 people in the whole country who even know.
Oh, that's insane! I can't believe that.
No, they do not know. They have no idea.
That's amazing.
No idea.
Wow. Because I'm like obsessed with the SEC fine. I've got a couple of videos that I've got that are going to be coming out with regards to it. I'm going to be breaking some serious news. I've got an insider here, Brother Jones, that has tracked some of the people who are associated with Ensign Peak. And what we've come to find out real quick, it's one of my pet hobby horses, but it's the credentials that these people have who were associated with this, like people like Roger Clark, people like Bishop Burton, and others. And their credentials have never been impacted by their association with this incredible charity fraud. I do have a big episode that I hope to have lined up from a big insider, because I hope to break some serious news on this stuff. But yeah, it's very big around here, but I can't believe it. It's almost nobody.
Oh yeah, I would say even people that work for the church here don't even know. They don't know anything about it.
That's amazing.
There might be 4 or 5 people who know and know the implications. One of the primary reasons is they if they saw the document, they really wouldn't understand what the document's about. So, you know, one of the things missionaries do here is teach English, you know, and I think that's actually a big risk for the church here, is to teach people English. The more they know, the more English they know, the more information they can get, and the more they can really see what's going on. But,
are the gospel topics essays translated into Thai?
No.
Wow.
No.
So when people in Thailand are getting a church message, it's entirely everything that they know about the church is correlated from the church itself, and there's virtually no ability for them, because they don't speak English, to learn anything that could be potentially derogatory, CES letter, nothing like that. They just get fed the Kool-Aid, drink the Kool-Aid, and that's about it. They can't find out, even if they wanted to, anything about the church, about its history, or anything like that.
That's right. That's right. I will say this. I want to add this. One of the great things about Thailand, Thai people, is their Buddhist background and their ability to just not take things seriously. Many people join the church and it's for social purposes, and they don't take a lot of the stuff seriously. And I have theories about why there's other phenomena that go on in the church here. But that's one of the good things about it, is that people just don't worry about all this stuff, and they just want to live their life. And so sadly, there are some people who are negatively impacted by the dogma, the rules, the mental health problem, things like that. That stuff certainly exists here. But anyway, we could talk offline more about some of this and see if you want to investigate.
Okay, before I let you go, you made a couple of things I just want to follow up with. Number one, you said that the Bangkok Thailand temple was a $100 million building, but the Widow's Mite report says that this building was probably around $50 million. So you seem to be saying that it cost twice as much as the best available information. Why is this? Did I hear you correctly that it was $100 million? And if so, how do you know that?
That is an estimate. There's a building behind it called the Annex. That's probably, I'm not sure how many square feet it is. But if you run the square footage and you run the standard rate per square foot, it comes in around 90 million. Now, I will just say this, that I heard directly from a project manager's mouth what the estimated cost was. I'll just say that.
Because there's an annex that goes with it that has some church headquarters and office space and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's an MTC back there now. There's housing. There's 2 chapels. The mission offices are there. I will add there's an interesting thing. People might be interested to know this. The temple presidency lived in the temple. They have apartments in the temple.
Is that right?
Yeah. Pretty nice apartment in downtown, right?
Wow. That's really taking you back to the pioneer era. When the pioneers built the temples, they included places for people to stay over, because you used to have to come from so far to get to the temple, either Logan Temple or the St. George Temple. And then you would stay over, and they used to have these little rooms there. And this is really taking us back there because, they want to keep them close by, and not all of these temple presidents who are generally uncompensated. They don't necessarily have, the good accommodations that they need. And this is a way to compensate them, right?
Yes. Yeah. So the temple presidency and the president, counselor, and their wives live in the temple.
Wow.
There's also 2 mission presidents that live on that site. I don't think their living quarters are in the temple, though. I'm not positive. So it's a big facility with doing lots of things. It might be interesting for people to know that Russian missionaries are doing MTC in Thailand.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So we dropped the missionaries out of Ukraine, but they're still in Russia.
I'm not quite sure, but they're missionaries from Russia and India that come to the MTC in Thailand. I don't know if there's been any public announcement about this, but yeah, there's actually full-time employees running the MTC here. Yeah.
Interesting.
See,
well, one thing that I wonder about in Thailand is the fact that, Buddhism is all about familial connections. It's about, having your ancestors are very important to your progression. They're still watching over you, and there's certain things that you could possibly do that could affect them, and certain things that they want you to do to either bless them or help them. That, that's why people burn incense and set food out. That seems to fit extremely well with LDS temple worship. That makes me why aren't these two things better connected together? Because honestly, Buddhism and Mormon temple rituals are great bedfellows.
That's a good observation. You would think so, yes, but I mean, it is hard to take people away from concepts of, well, let me put it this way. This is something I came to realize a few years ago. Buddhism technically is a philosophy, right? You know, they call it a religion, but there's, theoretically, you could be Christian and Buddhist. Okay, John Larson actually talks about this as well. He has experience with these cultures, and I don't know what I want to say about that right now. But other than there is Buddhism is about peace of mind. I would say finding peace of mind through meditation or principles and. Go listen to the Buddhist thing. If you strictly what he calls secular Buddhism, there should be no conflicts with secular Buddhism and Mormonism, honestly. Okay. So one issue, I know they're going to have this problem. They're encountering that. At least in Southeast Asia, keeping records of ancestors. They don't have good records, the generations and all that. I mean, there's hundreds of millions of people here who are gone to history. They have no record of them, and the church is all about recording people's key things. And so, they've got people on the ground working on that over here right now to gather names. There's a whole topic that I haven't heard recently in the bloggernacle related to who can do what temple work. The ancestry. I remember about 20 years ago, there was a presentation given out here about which of your ancestors you're allowed to take their names to the temple. And there was this thing, you have to be a direct line, and if you go off the line, you have to get permission. You know what I'm talking about, D-Vaz, at all? Have you ever heard about that?
Not as much, no.
Okay, I don't know what the current policy is about who you're allowed to do work for, but one thing is for sure in this region: family is not just your direct line; it's just a broad base. I mean, people. Right. In fact, most people I know, a cousin or whatever, they just call them a brother and a sister, that kind of thing, or an aunt and uncle. That's my mom now, kind of thing. There's just an extreme kind of collective mindset here. So. That's a subject I think is worth exploring more, is who is allowed to do what, and has that changed? Because that you've heard the issue about recycling names. I'm sure you've heard that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
With all of these temples going up and in, it'd be interesting to know how that issue is being impacted. But anyway.
Hey, Brother Jones, I want to thank you so much for coming on the Mormon News Roundup. We release new content every Sunday and Monday night at 9:30 p.m. And we do Real Talk Mormonism just on occasion, maybe once or twice a week, talk anything Mormon related. I really appreciate you coming on. Good luck out there in Thailand. Appreciate you stopping by. Like, subscribe, and come next time we fire it up. Return.
I will. Your news channel is great. I love your format. It's quick and fast. And I like it. I hope things are going well. And yeah, I'll keep listening. And yeah, we'll talk to you again sometime.
Hey, I really appreciate that. Remember that no one hallowed hand can stop this podcast from progressing. To all of you out there, really appreciate that. I'm going to try to do another live stream sometime this week. I never know where these things are going to go. I'm waiting for the haters out there. I guess the haters either haven't found me or decided that I'm not worth their time. It's probably a little of the above, but hopefully we can spread the word on this, because I do really want to get especially Mormon apologists to come on. I want to test myself against them. I'm sure some of them will be ready to hand me my lunch, but I want my lunch to be handed to me, because if I have bad ideas, I want those ideas to be corrected, because I want to believe as many true things and as few false things as possible. And that won't come from just watching episodes of Mormon Stories or Scripture Plus. It really has to come from discussions. And I'm going to be releasing some information as I've accepted some debates with some Mormon apologists coming up. I've got a lot of things in store for this channel. I have loads of backlogs of content of what we saw, the Russell M. Nelson Flight of Death, also some Smackdowns on Ward Radio. I'm coming with the receipts, and I'm really enjoying this podcast right now. I really want to appreciate the couple of super chat people out there once again. I want to thank Whoopi. Really appreciate your donation. That was very kind of you. And First Thessalonians, haven't met you before, but really appreciate it. If you want to get in touch with me, drop me an email to kolob@mormonnewsroundup.org, or you can visit my website, www.mormonnewsroundup.org. Once again, everybody stay safe out there. Really appreciate it. And remember that no unhallowed hand can stop this podcast from progressing.